Hello gang, so I wanted to make a little short video. Libby on Facebook was asking about how to remake or reload the Klipper firmware if necessary. So I figured I'd just do a really short video of how I go about the process. So I come over here and I just follow the upgrade step, and I'll put the link to this here of how do I upgrade to the latest software. It's pretty simple. You just need to follow these few steps, but you can get caught along the way if you're not sure about a few stuff. So I use PowerShell, but some people use PuTTY to connect to their Raspberry Pi. So make sure your Pi's on. My printer's back here. I bring up PowerShell. I connect via SSH to my Raspberry Pi, enter my password, and we're in. So now you can pretty much just follow these steps. The key thing that I find is I like to run this command. The Tinker has an issue sometimes where your USB connection to the printer is not properly connected, and if you hit this and you see such an issue like this, you've got a problem with your printer where you're not connected properly to it. So at this point, I usually have to power down my printer, reboot my Raspberry Pi with the USB connection not connected, let them power on both for 30 seconds, and then plug back in. So I'll do that, and I'll start recording that again, and then we can take off from the step from there. Alright, so we're back. Funny enough, the problem wasn't actually that the Klipper firmware, I was doing some work on it and I had unplugged it because I was rebooting the Raspberry Pi a lot. But yeah, now I plugged it in, so we'll connect again. Give my password, and then I will run this command, and now I get this port. And this is kind of important because you need to know this to flash. You can see over here, you're basically going to replace this line here with this information here, because that's what it needs to know to flash your actual firmware. So then the first thing you do is you write the cd :/Klipper, and this swaps us over to the Klipper folder on the Raspberry Pi. You then do a git pull, and that will pull from the GitHub. Again, this is all for stuff that's going. I usually look at this. If it's just configs and Python files, you normally don't need to actually flash the firmware itself, because those updates are just, like he says here, the host hasn't really changed. That's just stuff that's going to be on the running side of Klipper. But when I start seeing like .h files and .c files, those are definitely C# files, which is going to be probably in the firmware. So that's when I obviously do a flash. And you can see a lot of C files in this. It's been a while since I updated. So yeah, so this will be a full flash. But like this stuff, all the Python ones, you usually don't have to do a reflash. And then once you've done that, you can run the next line. And with this, you can copy it if you want to. I do that, and then I right click here in PowerShell, and it'll just paste it. And then you can do the install. And it wants to know my Raspberry Pi password because I'm doing, and it's connecting, and it's going to get the update for the Pi. This is important because you want the updates to match. And this may take a while. I'll probably cut the video here, so you're not just sitting there watching text go by. So we're done. Now that we're done, we can go do the make menu. So this is, I think, the part where some people get confused. So go to the config, make config. It brings up this. These are the settings I have. So the architecture for it is the AT Mega AVR. You go in here, you can see a bunch of different ones. It's always that, unless you're doing an input shaper, and that's a whole different step. I'm not going to confuse you on that. Processor for the Thinker is the AT Mega 2560. Processor is 16 hertz. Communication is UART. But I mean, you can just leave it like this too. Most people can just leave it so it's low level configuration. I think the last time I was in here, I was doing something else. And then when you're done this, you just can hit Q to quit, hit Y for yes, and you're done. Now you can do make clean, run that, create the symbolic links, and then you can just type make. And away it goes. Again, if this takes a while, I'll probably cut the video, but now it's compiling it all. It's pretty quick actually, and it's done. So now we just need to stop the service. So we sudo, which is giving it admin permissions, service, Klipper stop. Oops, I mistyped that. Survive, service. And the Klipper service is stop. Now we need to do the flash. I have this somewhere in my history, but I would recommend if you have like a text editor around that you actually copy that line and handle it properly. Just going through my history. Hopefully I have it, otherwise I'm going to be typing. There it is. So now we've got make flash, flash the device, and now I'm putting in the dev serial by ID, the USB, that line that came up when we did the list for the USB, and that's important because that's basically where it sees the actual motherboard. And then you can just hit enter, and it will flash. Some people have had this happen where it doesn't take the first time. I don't even unplug the LCD screen. I do nothing like that. I had once when I did it, the first time it didn't do it properly. I ran it twice. The second time it went through, and now we can just start the service, and we're done. And now I can just type in exit. So that's the whole process. Now if I come over to here, I can connect to my printer. It says connected. I like to go over to Klipper to make sure. I do always a firmware restart. It's just thing. It says disconnected. Ooh. Default parameters. So this looks like there's actually a problem in my Klipper config. Which is interesting because this is the same macro that was there. So maybe he changed something. So this is my M900. This is the pressure advance. Interesting. I'm just gonna cut this out for right now. Put this in the Word document. I'm just doing that so I have it somewhere, and then hit save. So I think there's probably a change where that maybe is now part of the vanilla Klipper. And I find that with OctoPrint, there's sometimes an issue where it doesn't actually option default parameter thing. So he's obviously changed in Klipper, and I'll have to read the release notes, but he's obviously changed some of the underlying constructs of it. Default parameters. So option default parameter is no longer valid, which means that in all my stuff where I do this default parameter, it doesn't like it anymore. So I'm just gonna take this one out too. I'll fix them later. You guys don't need to watch me fix those. There's another way around it. Obviously, this is some legacy stuff. Save that. And now I'm ready. So now down here you'll watch the thing and I can say home X and my printer's moving around. Or if I say like home all, you can watch my printer, it's all working. So now I'm all upgraded. But those are the kind of things that you may run into when you upgrade in Klipper. Is you may have like it. I mean, this firmware is pretty much in full development, and pulling from the hub, you're run the risk of things changing on you. So buyer beware, I guess. But there are ways around it. Like if you run into that, and I'll just quickly show you how to get around this. So basically, if we go back to this G code that I had, it's kind of a bonus. I'll say this is the bonus section of the video. If you run into this upgrade error. So this obviously is a legacy way of doing it. No longer likes the default parameters. I believe the proper way is to do it this way now. So if I copy that, come down here, instead of default parameter, right at the beginning of the G code, I resolve. Basically what you're doing is you're resolving the parameters in line. So I'm going to set S from param S, and my default is going to be 200 as it was above. So that replaces this line. And then I'll do that again for E. So this is E, E, and then the default I have is 25. This is just a custom thing that I have for loading filament. Back that out, and then hit save. It's gonna go off and do its thing. And it's ready again. So that obviously was a change in the system, and I was managed to change it, but sometimes you'll need to go to their Discord thing to understand or ask questions. But yeah, that's how you do it all. So hopefully that was informative, and let me know. You can put in the comments below if there was something I didn't cover that you wish I had, and good luck.